China promised speed, but it delivered rot. What was supposed to be the pride of a rising superpower, its glittering high-speed rail network is now literally cracking beneath the surface. Concrete crumbling, tracks warping, entire stations built on lies. And the cost? Hundreds of billions sunk into vanity projects, now collapsing like wet tofu. This wasn't just bad engineering, it was corruption disguised as ambition. A system so eager to impress the world, it cut every corner and built a national icon on a foundation of fraud. Now the cracks are spreading, from the railways to the economy, from the countryside to Beijing itself. And as you'll see in this video, the collapse of China's rail system is more than infrastructure failure. It's the collapse of a story the Communist Party told the world and itself. So what was the story? 50,000 kilometers in less than 2 decades. China laid more high-speed track than the rest of the planet combined. Bullet trains at over 300 kilometers per hour, connecting megacities to remote villages. President Xi Jinping called it transformative. State media gushed about seamless prosperity. It was spectacular, and it was a lie. This project was never about helping people travel. It was propaganda, cementing the Communist Party's legitimacy through spectacle. For local officials, rail lines became political trophies. Lines were approved in regions with almost no passengers because saying no to Beijing wasn't an option. One expert admitted many lines should not have been built by the government's own standards, but they were built anyway. Chinese media trumpeted every kilometer as triumph. Academics who warned of risks told to stay quiet. The Ministry of Railways operated like an independent kingdom, opaque and corrupt. They plowed ahead at China speed, confident riders would come. By 2018, propaganda declared it the pride of China. But beneath the glossy PR, something was rotting. And it wasn't just the propaganda or the politics. The propaganda was perfect. The concrete, garbage. There's a Chinese slang term haunting this project, tofu dreg. Construction so flimsy, it's as if the building were made of bean curd refuse. That's what China built its high-speed rail on. Corner cutting was rampant. Contractors won bids with impossibly low cost, then skimped on materials to turn a profit. The result? Brittle concrete, sinking roadbeds, cracking bridges. Concrete is the bedrock of any railroad, especially one designed for 350 kilometers per hour. You can't fake it. But in 2011, whistleblowers warned the high-performance fly ash needed for concrete was in short supply. China was laying over 1,000 kilometers per year, far more than materials could support. Under pressure, contractors substituted low-quality fly ash and inferior fillers. Professor Wang Lan warned using substandard concrete was almost inevitable. Those warnings were ignored. Failure was being baked in, invisible cracks that would remain dormant only so long. Now, after a decade, the consequences are surfacing. An internal survey by China's State Railway Group in 2021 examined track structures after 10 years of service. Every variety of ballastless track was riddled with defects. Every single one. In CRTS-1 segments, the older German-designed track, steel-reinforced bars had fractured and worked loose. Slabs showed widespread cracking and were separating from underlayers. In newer CRTS-2 track, entire beds were warping upward, joints shearing apart, mortar layers crushed under passing trains. Even the latest CRTS-3 track, supposedly the solution, is already cracking at the base. The survey revealed cracked rail beds, delaminated coatings, water seeping into structures, anchor bolts working loose. Deterioration you'd expect after decades, not 10 years. And here's what should terrify Beijing. These findings came from the railway's own teams. In a rare moment of candor, China admitted the 1,000-year infrastructure is already aging like a 100-year-old man. Want an example? In 2017, state media revealed that on the Shanghai-Kunming line, tunnels in Guizhou had serious quality problems. Contractors made tunnel walls far thinner than specifications, hadn't even filled gaps between lining and rock. Why? Save time and money. Soon, water leaked through, weakening structures. Officials forced trains to slow from 300 kilometers per hour to just 70. 70! A humiliating downgrade from shoddy construction. When an elevated bridge collapsed during rains, investigators found supporting pillars had disintegrated into powder. The concrete had more sand and air than cement. It wasn't the rain, it was corruption. In the rush to meet deadlines, contractors poured concrete in haste, skipped curing time, falsified inspections. Many structures have ticking time bombs within their concrete and steel, and those bombs are going off. But the cracks in concrete aren't even the worst part. The real disaster? The bill. 6.2 trillion won, roughly 850 billion US dollars, more than the GDP of many countries. And it's growing. In 2025 alone, even as the system buckled, China poured another 901.5 billion won into railways, a record high. The logic was build now, pay later, assuming growth would make debt manageable. Instead, railways have become a massive drag. Analysts called it a looming gray rhino, an obvious threat charging closer. Debt-to-asset ratio is over 63%. The venture is insolvent without government support. Why? Nearly all 40,000 plus kilometers of lines lose money. Only roughly 5% of the network covers costs. 5%. These are superstar lines linking mega cities: Beijing, Shanghai, Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, Nanjing, routes along the prosperous coast. The other 95%? Hemorrhaging cash. Half-empty trains between inland cities, each incurring huge costs for electricity, maintenance, staffing. Some provincial lines average so few riders it would be cheaper to give every passenger a chauffeured limousine. The system is saddled with politically motivated lines that never had a chance of profitability. This created a debt spiral. Revenue from profitable lines can't offset losses elsewhere. The entire network lost around 100 billion won in 2024 alone. Beijing claimed it turned profitable. That was creative accounting plus state subsidies. Official profit for 2024 was 3.9 billion won, achieved only by including government support. Strip that away, deeply in the red. To keep trains running, the company must borrow more, not to build, but to pay interest on old loans. Ponzi dynamics, fresh debt covering past debt servicing costs. Annual interest payments, 150 to 200 billion won per year. Money the railway doesn't have from operations. To stem bleeding, authorities raised ticket prices. Throughout 2024 and 2025, fares jumped 20 to 40% on many routes. It backfired spectacularly. As China's economy slowed, consumers became price-sensitive. Working-class passengers abandoned high-speed trains, returning to old slow trains or buses. During 2025 Lunar New Year, state media noted unexpectedly high numbers took slower trains, leaving high-speed seats empty. Higher prices pushed customers away. Ridership dropped. So did revenue. Meanwhile, the traditional method to cover losses collapsed. For years, local governments absorbed losses expecting to profit from land development around stations. When new stations were built on outskirts, governments auctioned surrounding land to developers. Land sale profits subsidized rail operations. But today, China's property market is in disarray. The bubble burst. Developers bankrupt. Land sales plummeted. Local governments are strapped and can't bank on land deals. Many are deeply in debt from overborrowing for infrastructure. In provinces like Guizhou and Yunnan, which built extensive lines through mountains, local debt reached crisis levels. No property windfalls are coming. Authorities started cutting support, reducing train frequencies, closing underused stations. The central government hit the emergency brake on new approvals in 2022. Build at all costs is over. not by choice, but necessity. China's left with a high-speed empire in a debt time bomb. The question isn't if debt will be paid, it can't be. The question is how long it can be rolled over. So where did the money go? Brand new, multi-million-dollar, 0 passengers. At least 26 high-speed stations are idle or mothballed. The true count may be higher. Causes are the same: remote locations, no development, routes that never attracted crowds. Many sites were 15 to 20 kilometers outside cities because land was cheaper. Governments hoped to stimulate new districts. Those developments never materialized. Nanjing ended up with 2 ghost stations. Purple Mountain East and Jiangdu were never included in schedules. 13 years later, they've never welcomed a single passenger. Fully equipped, collecting dust. Each cost 1 to 2 million won yearly for maintenance and security. Other stations saw initial service but were shut when only handfuls boarded. China Railway closed over 20 stations since 2010. The emptiness is striking. Futuristic hubs designed for thousands with only a few souls wandering through. The network was built backwards: flashy first, functional last. Without organic demand, investments languish. Many lines were built for political connectivity, to say every province has high-speed rail rather than genuine demand. These ghosts burden communities. Localities spent fortunes on infrastructure around stations. When foot traffic never came, businesses closed. Local budgets strained maintaining roads and utilities to stations nobody uses. But bodies weren't just hidden in balance sheets. They were buried under wreckage. 40 people died. Beijing's response? Bulldoze the evidence. July 2011. Wenzhou high-speed train crash. 2 trains collided on a viaduct after signaling failure. Carriages plummeted. 40 dead. Nearly 200 injured. The government's response? An apparent cover-up. Authorities ordered media clampdowns. Reporters told to stick to positive stories. Crews were observed using bulldozers to push dirt over wrecked cars to hide evidence. The public erupted online. We have the right to know the truth. Wenzhou became a watershed moment. It shattered the narrative of infallibility. Railways Minister Liu Zhizhong had already been sacked for corruption. The crash cemented the sense that corruption endangered safety. A popular comment: China is a train rushing through a lightning storm. We are all passengers. After Wenzhou, the ministry was dismantled in 2013. Operations commercialized with hopes of transparency, but old habits die hard. The program forged ahead under political pressure. Safety took a back seat again. Whistleblowers were muzzled. Professor Zhao Jian warned for years about building too fast. He was sidelined. His university cautioned him to tone down criticism. Safety warnings were political nuisances. In 2017, the paper confirmed fraudulent tunnel constructions. In 2022, a train derailed in Guizhou after hitting landslide debris. Driver killed. While triggered naturally, it highlighted vulnerability of routes through mountains. China's experts voiced alarm about design flaws. Fatigue cracks in components worry many as the network ages. With tight maintenance budgets, there's fear intervals could be stretched too far. In late 2023, Economic Daily ran a front-page piece on serious problems in high-speed rail planning and construction. Remarkable, the government talking to itself, admitting mistakes. It signaled deep concern about the rail system. Beijing scapegoated individuals. Liu Zhizhong jailed, others disciplined. But admissions don't resurrect fortunes. They just confirm what many suspected all along. The high-speed miracle had a darker underside, and the public is catching on. For average citizens, cracks aren't just physical, they're symbolic. Propaganda said this was the safest, most advanced railway, a testament to superiority. But news of leaking tunnels, collapsing bridges, officials conceding too many lines were built, it chips away at rust. Each scandal, each closed ghost station, each fare hike plants doubt. For a one-party state staking legitimacy on delivering progress, this is dangerous. The high-speed rail was supposed to be crowning success. Its failings are hard to explain. The facade of invincibility is gone, and when you zoom out, you realize something terrifying. This isn't just about trains, it's about everything. High-speed rail was supposed to unite China. Instead, it's tearing it apart. The crisis is a microcosm of the nation's trajectory. Same patterns: overreach, debt-fueled growth, corruption. This saga shows pitfalls of the China model. Breakneck infrastructure expansion as a modernization shortcut. It dazzled observers but was achieved through brute force investment and wasteful allocation. Ghost cities and ghost stations are twin offspring of the same mentality. Regional inequality was exacerbated. Profitable lines connect already rich mega regions. Many spurs into poorer provinces became millstones. Guizhou built spectacular bridges through mountains. Now it has crushing debt levels. Shiny rails are added burdens on provinces struggling with basic services. Local economies were crushed. Governments borrowed to co-fund projects, expecting to recoup through growth. Where growth didn't come, they're left with massive debts. Some cities slashed spending on hospitals and schools because money sunk into rails, yielding no returns. Most damaging, the crisis exposes governance fraught with deception. For years, government used high-speed rail as proof of authoritarian efficiency outshining democracies. That rings hollow when bridges collapse after a decade and debts are hidden. The rail project was a giant gamble. Pour in resources, impress everyone, assume it pays off. As it falters, it reveals China's boom was built on shaky pillars of poorly mixed concrete. The party's contract: deliver ever-improving standards in exchange for uncontested power. What happens when delivery falters? Rail woes signal the era of guaranteed rapid improvement is ending. And this isn't the first time in history we've seen this pattern. Great powers overshoot, creating monumental projects that become liabilities. Romans built roads and aqueducts. Centuries later, many fell into disrepair as the state couldn't maintain them, symbolizing decline. Soviets pumped mega projects without regard to efficiency, found themselves economically broken with half-finished schemes. In China's case, high-speed rail might have been the moonshot to herald the Chinese century. Instead, it could be an albatross dragging finances and credibility down. Rail troubles reflect how China's model, heavy investment, high leverage, suppressed criticism, can lead to spectacular results followed by severe hangovers. Leadership knows the stakes. We see damage control, halting new builds, emphasizing maintenance, restructuring debts, trying to manage slow deflation rather than loud pop. But these are temporary fixes. Fundamental issues remain. Too many lines, not enough riders, too much debt, too much corruption. Economically, the rail is a drag at the worst time. Double-digit GDP expansion is over, growth slowed, population aging and shrinking. In this new normal, rail's enormous losses are serious burdens. Money bailing out railways isn't going to innovation, education, or areas needed to sustain development. Rail debt approaching $1 trillion represents future wealth already spent with little return. It weighs down the financial system like an anchor. If rail debt triggers broader confidence crisis, it could contribute to banking or local government funding crises. The central government might assume liabilities, but that transfers pain onto the national balance sheet. High-speed rail could help drag the entire economy into stagnation, but the economic damage is only half the story. Politically, rail troubles strike at party legitimacy. The party pointed to infrastructure marvels as evidence its rule is superior. Now a crown jewel is tarnishing. Ghost stations and accidents haven't gone unnoticed, even if discussion is muted. Public sentiment shifted in some quarters to frustration or mockery. The very regions rail was supposed to help, poorer provinces, are most disillusioned. This feeds betrayal. Local interests were sacrificed for vanity. Socially, when workers revert to slow trains because bullet tickets are too pricey, it undercuts the narrative of improving life. Like being told to downgrade after tasting modernity. Many Chinese ask, was the rush really for us or just political bragging? When the answer seems the latter, it erodes trust. Symbolically, a collapsing rail system is powerful and ominous. It evokes a nation going off the rails. Cracked viaducts or stalled trains in a country that advertised them as flawless is an apt metaphor for a stalling growth engine. Each time a train must slow permanently due to land subsidence, as is happening near Beijing where parts of a flagship line sink yearly, it reminds us that even ground beneath engineering is unstable. Just as engineers scramble to shore up pillars, policymakers scramble to shore up a slowing economy. But how long can they keep patching? At some point, fundamental realignment is needed, or a serious crash becomes likely. The rail was supposed to be century-long infrastructure future generations would laud. Instead, it's facing midlife crisis in its first decade and a half. Rather than expanding triumphantly, the system is in managed decline. 2026 marks the end of the Great Expansion era. Construction has basically halted aside from projects too far along to stop. Focus shifted to extending lifespan of what's built, triaging worst issues. Government will pump funds into maintenance, spending billions to fix what was already spent on. Highly inefficient. Entire sections might need ripping out because they weren't built to last. Re-engineering could cost more than original construction. The Railway Ministry's successor will be preoccupied with austerity and repairs, not vision and expansion. Defensive, pessimistic posture. Far cry from bold optimism of a decade ago. The fall wouldn't by itself destroy China, but it's dragging the nation down by 1,000 cuts. One big part of larger unraveling. Combine it with real estate implosion, aging workforce, capital flight, structural issues, you have a China that's slowing, struggling under debt, losing the aura of unstoppable rise. Rail's fate accelerates regional disparities. Wealthy areas support their lines, poor ones cannot. This feeds political strains between provinces and Beijing. It's accelerating confrontation with truth. Problems are too big to hide behind propaganda. State media admitting rail problems shows a system that can't deny vulnerabilities. The derailment of rail ambition is a warning of deeper national decline. What was meant to be a unifying artery has become, in places, a festering wound splitting regions financially. Physical cracks reflect cracks in China's developmental model. Trains built to symbolize a new era are slowing. Stations built as gateways are locked and silent. The party can't fully explain failures without indicting its own policies. Hence, uneasy silence and half admissions. But reality speaks louder. The miracle is faltering. If the world's largest infrastructure project can buckle under its own weight after just years, one must ask, what else in China's rushed ascent might be hollow or on the brink? Empires fall by rot from within, when grand works turn to dust and debts come due. In China's high-speed rail, we're witnessing that turning point. It's a dramatic act in the saga of an overstretched nation facing the limits of its model. As trains slow and debts mount, the feared gray rhino charges closer. China's collapse is coming not with a sudden bang, but with the slow, screeching grind of a high-speed train coming off its tracks. So what do you think? Is China's high-speed rail a symbol of the nation's decline, or can Beijing pull off a recovery? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to Fall of Nations for more deep dives into the forces reshaping our world.